So week 2 of our Tuesday Truth or Happiness Dhamma study on the Four Foundations of Mindfulness. I trust that you've all done your homework. And so I read about the first 2/3 of this last Saturday. I'm not going to read it again because you all just read it, and the talk is on the website. I'm just going to go back a few paragraphs and where I left off and then continue from there. But the beginning of the Satipatthana Sutta, the Sutta on the Four Foundations of Mindfulness, begins with the Buddha's instructions on how to meditate, how to do jhana meditation, to become mindful of our breath in the body. That's the first foundation of mindfulness. The second foundation of mindfulness is to be mindful that feelings arise and pass away and thoughts arise and pass away. The true application of mindfulness there is this dispassionate mindfulness that's rooted in concentration developed in jhana practice. In other words, instead of reacting to feelings and thoughts, and a reaction is doing anything with it, analyzing it, trying to find blame for it, or trying to enhance it in some way. We simply feel what we feel, we think what we think, we come back to the sensation of breathing. And that leads to the fourth foundation of mindfulness. The fourth foundation of mindfulness is simply noticing the present quality of mind without the need for it to be any different. And if we are caught up in our feelings and thoughts, reacting to our feelings and thoughts, the quality of our mind will be less than peaceful, less than calm. And that's simply a check then on how our practice is going. If we find our minds constantly distracted or agitated, we know where the answer is. It's continued Dhamma practice. And then throughout the sutta, the Buddha then teaches us how to apply that refined mindfulness to other important themes of the Dhamma. And I'm not going to get too deep into that because I touched on it on Saturday. Let me just read this. And so this is, I'm beginning with the fourth foundation of mindfulness, which is that charge that I give you at the end of meditation. Notice the quality of your mind. Be at peace with your mind. That's referring to the fourth foundation of mindfulness. No matter what the present quality of our mind, we could be extremely agitated or fearful or angry or elated in this moment, meaning out of our minds. And with that simple understanding, that simple breath meditation, remind me to take a breath, bring my mind back into my body. And now I'm no longer stressed. And if I do that and I'm still stressed, what do? Take another breath. What you're doing is intentionally disentangling yourself from the cause of your distress, which in this case is your own feelings and thoughts that are entangled in the world. I'll talk a little bit more about that. The fourth foundation of mindfulness is being mindful of the present but impermanent quality of your mind. Is your present quality of mind inclined towards craving, clinging, and the continuation of stress? Is your present quality of mind inclined towards developing wisdom and release from craving and clinging? And that's the choice that every human being has. And as Dhamma practitioners, we have the clear choice of either continuing the ignorance and the results of ignorance or continuing to incline our minds towards awakening. And that's true mindfulness as the Buddha teaches mindfulness. There's no Dhamma value in being mindful of washing the dishes or walking in the woods or driving a car. It's good to be mindful of doing anything, but that's not Dhamma practice. That's the results of an accurate Dhamma practice. If we try to substitute it, if we try to decide, well, today I'm going to work on my walking meditation and later on this afternoon I'll do my dishwashing meditation, it's not Dhamma practice. It might be fun. It might be, I don't know that I'd call it useful, but it might be something better than you might otherwise do, but it's not Dhamma practice. And so it won't deliver the results that Dhamma practice will. So the mindfulness we're talking about is a broader type of mindfulness that notices the quality of your mind that has developed from defining yourself through self-referential experiences driven by feelings and conditioned thinking. Simply notice when your mind seeks further sensual stimulation. And we talk about this every class. And you have all talked about how you're able to now recognize when you're falling into a grasping after mental quality and you restrain yourself. You practice wise restraint and you bring your mind back in our body. And the brilliance of what the Buddha is teaching here and what he understood as he described in the Nagara Sutta, is the basic problem of human life on a very focused, another word for mindful, application. In other words, the Buddha was never concerned about the big questions or the great questions or where we're going as a species or where I'm going as a human being. He was concerned about one thing that he taught for 45 years. What is the fourth foundation of mindfulness right now in my body? What is the present quality of my mind? And if I find that it is less than framed by the Eightfold Path, what do I need? I need a little bit more Dhamma practice. That's all that it means. It doesn't mean that I'm doing something wrong. It doesn't mean that the Dhamma doesn't work. It just means that because of that recognition, the Dhamma is working, and I need to bring my mind back into my body in this moment and be at peace with the present quality of mind. And as we do that, and there's many other applications of this. Again, we're going to talk more about that in the next 11 weeks. But every time we do that, we're engaged in authentic Dhamma practice that will be the foundation of our awakening. Every single time. When our minds are distracted and we take a breath and come back into our body, whether it's on our cushion or in our mundane life, we are practicing the Dhamma and we are increasing our concentration and refined mindfulness. Notice when your mind seeks further sensual stimulation. Notice when your mind is distracted by ill will. Everybody knows that. In fact, when I'm teaching children, meaning anybody 15 or 16 and below, the first thing I talk to them about is how they generate that feeling of ill will in themselves. And usually it goes something like this. I said, you notice when you're talking with a friend and you're talking about someone else that's not there, and you might be maybe making fun of him a little bit, and that's what kids do. That's what we all do. We do it as adults too. And they'll say, yeah. And I say, do you notice how you feel when you do that? You don't feel good, do you? And they'll always say, yeah. And so in all the great wisdom that I've developed through the Dhamma, this is my advice. Don't do it. And some of them actually get it right on the spot, and some of them come back to the next week and say, you know, that was it. It's such an easy way to introduce children to the Dhamma, but it's also a very good way to introduce ourselves back to the Dhamma. Do we notice when we are holding ill will towards others or towards ourselves? How does it make us feel? We feel awful. And we'll often do other things to compensate for the feeling that we generated in ourselves, such as take a drink or a drug or kick the dog or punch our spouse or do anything else. Go on do they still have a home shopping club? Because I almost said it. Is there still such a thing? Mm-hmm. Or go on a home shopping club. We have all kinds of strategies that we employ to take us away from the feeling that we are responsible for generating in the first place. Thoughts, feelings, and the present quality of our mind. If I don't have control of my mind, then my feelings and thoughts are going to continue to rule my life. But if I engage through this simple and authentic Dhamma practice, I'll learn to gain control of my mind again, and be able to maintain a calm and peaceful mind no matter what's occurring. It's true mindfulness. Notice when your mind is dull or restless or anxious or distracted by uncertainty. Remember that this is a dispassionate noticing. And notice there's no other instructions here from me or from the Buddha, that once you notice that your mind is distracted or full of ill will, that you need to do something about it, meaning analyze it, figure out who caused it or who's to blame or what's wrong with you that you're thinking that way. You simply notice it and come back to the sensation of breathing. Anything else is simply reinforcing the self-referential view that's underlying that thought or feeling in the first place, a distraction. Anytime we engage in it and I'm not talking about any other practice you might be engaged in or some kind of contemplation you might like to do, that's fine, but it's not Dhamma practice. Dhamma practice, we recognize the present quality of our mind no matter what it is, and we come back to our breath. We bring our mind back on our body. And in that way, we are deconditioning ourselves to insist that I must feel a certain way all the time or I'm not going to be happy. That's what a child does, isn't it? That's why I describe awakening. The best way I know how to describe it is full human maturity. Because truly mature people, the minds of truly mature people aren't thrown to the winds by everything that changes. It's what the Buddha noticed. That's why a key understanding of the Buddha's Dhamma is understanding the nature of impermanence.
So Jan,
yes.
The point of contact is the development of your practice, so you can experience that turning back.
Yes.
The name and form, is that really the whole essence of what the practice is and
Yep.
the development of jhana?
Absolutely. What David mentioned, name and form, it's a there's a Pali word that says nama rupa, which is usually misunderstood and misapplied, but it simply means name and form. It means I have given a name to this form. I have self-identified as this. And once I decide that this is what I am, then I'm compelled for the rest of my life to defend and promote this self. When that self is rooted in views that are ignorant of the way things truly are.
But it's an idea too, right?
Oh yeah. In fact, it often is, not even often, it always is an abstract idea of who I am in relation to the world that causes all of our difficulties. That's the reference that we're going to study next week to the Four Noble Truths. They're noble because they actually accurately describe what a human being is in relation to the world. Nothing more and nothing less. And that immediate self-identification as this is me is the problem. When I can recognize that, no, this is not me. This is just a view, an abstract view rooted in ignorance of reality that I'm using to create a fabricated self in this moment. And in order to continue Namarupa, name and form, self-referential views, in order to continue to do that takes tremendous effort, tremendous effort. And now we know how to call that tremendous effort. Stress. The Buddha used the word dukkha, means exactly the same thing. He understood 2,600 years ago something that even the medical profession is just coming to understand in the last 30 years. And they're starting to find out that the cause of most human misery and illness is stress. Whether it's direct stress or it's the stress that makes me grab for a pack of cigarettes or a box of chocolates or whatever else it might be, or a bottle of vodka, or too much of this or too much of that. Again, going back to being at peace with feelings and thoughts. When I am, I don't need to change how I feel, do I? I don't become frustrated with my thoughts. Why is that? Because I've learned how to depersonalize the entire life experience. Because there's nothing personal in human life, nothing. And I know that your minds are going towards things that you take as personal, but they're only seen as personal because of the way you see them. When you let go of the personalization of anything, it completely, I was going to say diffuses the situation, but it's even more than that. It renders the situation peaceful when there's no me in it. Remember that this is a dispassionate noticing that develops an understanding of your clinging, conditioned mind. That's why we continue ignorance. When any of these qualities are noted, return your mindfulness to your breath. Again, I'm talking about on your cushion, but also off your cushion. As concentration deepens and mindfulness broadens, notice the development of the qualities of right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, serenity, and equanimity. Again, we talk about that all the time. It's so important to notice the immediate benefits of our Dhamma practice, because it continually invigorates our practice, but it also keeps us focused on what's working. Ehepasiko, the Dhamma is developed by having the direct experience of it working, of it developing. And we build on that. The word foundation is so important. Again, I'll talk about another way of calling the Four Foundations of Mindfulness. Another reference to it is the Four Frames of Reference, and you'll see how that fits. The Four Foundations of Mindfulness are also known as the Four Frames of Reference. You are developing mindfulness and concentration in the context of the Four Noble Truths. What this means is that as you continue to develop concentration and mindfulness, you begin to integrate the Four Noble Truths more deeply into your life. You see how they apply. These four simple truths, when we first come across them, most people have a hard time even understanding what they mean. But there's nothing hard to understand. It's just that the truths are so contradictory to the way we want to see ourselves in relation to the world that most people have tremendous aversion to actually seeing the Four Noble Truths in a simple and direct way that they really are. Dukkha occurs. Craving for and clinging to views ignorant of Four Noble Truths is the origination of dukkha. it's possible to end that process, and the Eightfold Path is the path leading to the cessation of self-induced stress. That's Four Noble Truths. Anybody can understand that by just taking a few moments and reading it. And then we can apply it in our Dhamma practice from a well-concentrated mind. And again, you'll see how this builds as we get into next week in the Four Noble Truths, how it relates in that way. You will begin to understand stress and how the quality of your mind is either inclined towards continuing stress or developing release from craving. We each have that choice in every moment of our lives. Every moment of a human life holds the potential to either awaken, as the Buddha describes awakening, or to continue ignorance. That's the one choice we have. And if we make the wise choice, then that one single choice leads to ultimate freedom. It leads to the type of freedom that every human being wants and feels that they deserve. We just don't know how to get it. The Buddha figured it out 2,600 years ago, and those same teachings are here in this room tonight. Through a true practice of mindfulness within the framework of the Eightfold Path, you gain the ability to understand that the state of your mind, the mental quality of your mind in this present moment, is dependent on and caused by your previous mind states. Does everybody get that? Do I need to read it again?
Yes, read it again, please.
Yes, thank you. Within the framework of the Eightfold Path, you gain the ability to understand that the state of your mind, the mental quality of your mind, that fourth foundation of mindfulness, in the present moment is dependent on and caused by your previous mind states. Everybody get that? And so that relates to what I just said a few moments ago. That's in this present moment. The only aspect of myself that I can ever have any direct impact on, meaning to change it in any way, is right here and right now. I can't change a foolish thought I had 5 seconds ago or 5 years ago, can I? And I can't change the foolish thought that I might have tomorrow that's going to get me in trouble unless I take care of what's occurring right here, right now in my mind. Now, we develop a Dhamma practice with the intention that awakening will dawn. So there's a future focus, if you will. But we understand that in this moment, that's what I'm doing. We understand that in this moment, I'm practicing the Dhamma. As mindfulness of breath, feeling, and thought develops, and understanding and awareness of the quality of mind develops, you gain the ability to put away greed and distress with reference to the world. This is called right mindfulness. With right mindfulness, you gain an understanding of mind as a vehicle of perception. Right mindfulness is recognizing and abandoning craving and clinging arising from ignorance. Having put aside all afflictions, this is the mind of equanimity, a mind fully engaged in the phenomenal world without discriminating or discursive thinking, a mind completely free of reaction. Imagine having a mind like that. It's wonderful. As noted previously, right mindfulness is the seventh factor of the Eightfold Path and directly precedes the teaching on right meditation in order to emphasize the necessity to develop right mindfulness. Again, this is something the Buddha recognized 2,600 years ago. The tendency to use something like a phrase like mindfulness, it sounds like it's a cool thing to do, and apply it in too broad a term, and then make what's developed in our modern world its own type of religion and its own type of worship of constant mindfulness, which only distracts us from developing the refined mindfulness that's resting in jhana meditation. It's not the same thing. Right mindfulness is the foundation for an authentic and effective meditation practice, all within the right understanding of the Four Noble Truths. Mindfulness truly is the foundation of all of the teachings of the Buddha. By practicing mindfulness within the context of the Four Noble Truths, you can free yourself of the stress and suffering caused by mindlessness. Mindfulness within the context of the Four Noble Truths will develop an awakened mind, a mind of pure equanimity. Right mindfulness is reviewed in relation to the Eightfold Path in week 6. Again, we'll just go over this again. It is included here so that you can begin to develop mindfulness together with your meditation practice. The Buddha concluded his teaching on the Four Foundations of Mindfulness with a promise. This is the direct path for the purification of all beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and regret, for the disappearance of pain and distress, for the attainment of the right method, and for the realization of unbinding from all views rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. In other words, the Buddha continues, the four frames of reference. Thus was it said, in reference to this, it was said. Talk. Thank you all. So this singularly important teaching does establish the foundation for our entire Dhamma practice. And as we're learning here in this study, and as many of us have been learning over the last few years, this very, keep using that word, this very refined type of mindfulness has a quality of freedom and spaciousness and peace, calm. You could even attach the label of righteousness, but not in an arrogant way, because it's a quality of mind that rests in knowing that it knows. I was trying to think of the best. It's characterized as an inner poise that is unshakable by anything that occurs in the world. It takes time to develop that, but we're all developing it. And as best as I can see, I'm looking around the room before I make this statement. And each and every one of you, with the exception of Liam, but he'll say this next week if he comes back, has said just that. I notice I'm more calm and at peace. I notice that my interactions with others is more peaceful and calm. I notice that I'm more with it. I notice that I'm actually mindful for my life as my life unfolds. That's what life is about. That's why we're here. Why else would we have a human life if it wasn't to live that life? And we cannot live that life if we're not in our bodies, can we? We can have the appearance of it. We can spend 100 years stuck in the past and thrown into the future by our own ignorance. Or we can develop this simple Dhamma and live a human life. That's the promise of the Dhamma. So let's go around the room. I think I'll start online. Thad left us. Let's start with Jane. How are you, Jane?
I'm fine, John. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. What did you think of this week's study?
I can't adequately articulate what's happened to me, except to say what you just said, that I have found calm and peace.
I'm sorry. That's perfect. That's beautiful.
So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Marcine, how are you tonight? Wait. No, wait. I can't. Julia. Good evening.
Good evening.
Julia
I'm not used to going first.
Julia was the recipient of my own ignorance last Saturday, so we have to call.
That's not true. That's fine. I enjoyed this lesson, and I like the understanding that the mind is a perceiver, and how you can return to the breath. And by returning to the breath, you can take a pause and become a witness of your actions and your thoughts, and bring peace to yourself. I have a whole paragraph here that I wrote. I'm trying to say it because I'm trying not to read it off of it, but difficult to express it. But the thing that I understood was that understanding the mind as a vehicle of perception. And that the lesson is the mind is a perceiver and how it defines itself through feelings and thoughts arising from the sixth sense base, and being mindful of the quality of the mind so as to recondition it. The whole idea is to recondition your mind and bring yourself to peace.
Yeah.
And so on.
It's really going from one condition. Yeah, you are taking your mind conditioned towards ignorance and using the Dhamma conditioning it towards understanding and wisdom.
It's like you're taming yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what this is. It's probably it's not probably, it's the ultimate in mind training, isn't it? And we do it ourselves. Michael.
Hi, John. I just wrote a little something that I started last last class, so I'm just going to go over it quickly. When the mind unites with the body, dispassion arises. When dispassion arises, we become non-reactive to our environment. When we are non-reactive, conditioned responses fade away. When conditioned responses fade away, recognition arises. Recognition, restraint arises. When restraint arises, our response to whatever is occurring is framed by the Eightfold Path. Dispassion is a state of being wherein the ego self is suppressed. When the ego self is suppressed, there is no I-making. When I-making is suppressed, disentanglement with the phenomenal world occurs. When disentanglement with the phenomenal world occurs, the wise disciple is released from self-identification with the phenomenal world. When this occurs, the cessation of stress and suffering is realized, and the wise disciple is aside in a peaceful abiding and experience life being present moment by moment.
That's beautiful. Where'd you get that from?
I wrote it this afternoon.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Russ, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I just like the idea that this provides a way to live life fully,
Yeah.
day by day.
Yeah.
That's the main thing I get out of it.
And that's
Just-
everything, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want to?
Yeah. That's right. Thank you. Hello, Nick.
Hello. I guess I misunderstood what we were supposed to read, but I read this. I read the story about Bahia. And the interesting thing says at the end, which it says, Buddha gave these final instructions moments before he himself passed. And it says, impermanence and decay are relentless. Strive diligently for your own salvation. The question here is, I don't think I've ever seen the word salvation in anything that I've read before. So I want to know what the context of salvation means in this context.
Oh, yeah. In the context of the Buddha's Dhamma, as he describes awakening, that's you could use understanding. The reference is simply that the salvation from ignorance. It describes the awakened state. And there's that's the English translation. It's actually, I don't know if it was, whatever the translation was, that was the word that was used, but you can put a few different words in there and mean the same thing. It just means the culmination of the path. It's up, but it emphasizes the point that it's up to us. We strive diligently for our own salvation. It's not for somebody else that we're doing it for. It's not to save all sentient beings, and it's not bestowed on us by any outside agency. It's up to us. I hope that clarifies it.
Mm-hmm.
In the email, it points to what that particular week's class will be on.
Yes.
And I think I've been putting a little like an extra suit in there just for further reading. That we don't get to.
Yeah, actually, I think there was kind of a broken link there because I couldn't get from that.
The Padma Sutta.
Yeah, couldn't get to it.
I always, I almost always check them. So who knows?
Yeah.
The strange electronics world we live in. Thank you, Nick. Hello, Liz.
Hi, John. How are you?
I'm good.
That's good. I'm really happy to be going through this again. And I really like what Michael said. It's almost like it was done in the same sort of process as the way the Buddha spoke. So I really like that. Goes right along with dependent and origination. This arises and that arises, and this is what the next thing is. So that would be a really nice thing to have on the wall
Yeah.
for all of us to look at. Anyway, I'm
Hear that, Michael?
enjoying this, and thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Liz. Hi, Bonnie.
Hey, John. I'm just grateful for how every time we study this, more clarity arises from this, and how everything is linked together, and loops back on itself, and the relief that it provides.
Yeah.
I'm grateful.
Thank you, Bonnie. Hello, Kate.
Hello. I wrote it, and I try very hard not to be an academic writer.
Wow, you actually did your homework?
I get brownie points for that.
Of course.
I found that it was very difficult for me to meditate, to settle, to put space in my day, to just do it, but I found a good place in my bedroom. I have to put the dog outside, and because he thinks it's playtime if
Yeah.
I'm on the floor. And I'm constantly having to redirect away from the chatter and back into my breath. And the thing that I got this week out of doing this practice is how much anxiety is in the background all the time.
Yeah.
And I have always claimed not to have anxiety.
Yeah.
But I was hospitalized for it one time for 2 days with, they thought it was a heart attack.
Yeah.
And, I'm a therapist, and my clients tell me, oh, I have an anxiety attack and it feels this way, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, they're there now, And so I didn't realize how hidden my own anxiety is. It's like that background noise all the time.
Yep.
So just having that realization was huge for me this week. Is to see that.
Yeah, that's huge, period.
Mhm.
And that's a definition of a mind developing concentration. You're able to see something that was so common in yourself, so familiar that you didn't even notice it.
Mhm.
But a few weeks, and I'm not trying to over exaggerate this, but a few weeks of right meditation concentrated your mind enough to see what was going on in your own mind.
Yeah.
That's what the Dhamma practice is about, to understand yourself in relation to the world. And we do it through this process of actually looking at what's going on. And in that case, in that moment, it was anxiety.
Yeah.
It's just incredible, isn't it? Your meditation method, you're maintaining it as when you find it, you're caught up in your thoughts and your feelings, you come back to your breath.
Yeah.
And your concentration is increasing. So
yeah,
that's wonderful. Good for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I thought, let's see. How are you, Helen?
I'm fine, thank you, John. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. I kind of like the school of Frank, where you find the simplicity of it.
Yeah.
And, it's that ability to pause and detach, which is what we do when we're meditating, when we find out we're caught up with our thoughts.
Yeah.
We pause and we detach and recognize the spaciousness between the thoughts and the distractions. And now that I'm paying even more attention to the spaciousness, and I am more aware of what those moments feel like, I can almost bring them on more, because it's, I can go back to that familiar place now. So I'm learning from the school of Lorna, recognize the rising and the passing, and that's where the spaciousness occurs. And then just be very aware of that spaciousness and all of that you experience in that moment. And because it's more familiar now, I can almost bring it on more. I can go back to that secret spacious place.
Thank you, Helen. You're describing the ability that you've developed to think what you want to think when you want to think it. Again, isn't that everything?
Stop thinking when you want to
Yeah,
stop thinking.
when you want to, you can stop. You're not driven by greed and aversion and deluded thinking to keep chasing one thought after another. Your mind is calm. That's the Buddha's description of disappointing to some, but that's the Buddha's description of an awakened human being. A calm that is unshakable, or at least mostly so. Thank you, Helen. Stock University there. How are you, Frank?
It's good to be here. Good to see everybody. The class is growing.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. The 4 frames of reference for me has always been the drive chain of this vehicle. And what I noticed in the last probably a few weeks, because I've been trying to really identify the quality of mind throughout the day. And you use the word the abstraction of ideas and thoughts, the storytelling that goes on when I'm in a quality of mind that I don't really care for. And I'm not on cushion, I'm going through my day.
Yeah.
The storytelling and the ideas and things that I'm like kind of making up in my own mind. And it's driving an unhealthy quality of mind. And so I'm starting to learn how to cultivate good qualities in mind, but I have to rely on the Eightfold Path. I have to be mindful of my speech and mindful of my actions and my intentions. And I'm like, wow, this is really how it works. I'm like, it like started to unfold for me a little bit this past week. And I found myself in a few conversations that were with people who were aggressive, but I was able to maintain that quality of mind because I was relying on the Eightfold Path.
Yep.
I just kept that in mind and just being mindful of my speech and my actions and intentions. And then just hit me like, that's right effort.
Yeah. And that's what the,
and
that's
I'm
what the Buddha's
that's
referring to
that's what
too.
you do. I'm like, and it was just like clicking for me a little bit, so it felt good.
Yeah.
So I thank you for that.
Well, yeah, you're welcome. And you, I know you acknowledge yourself because you put in the right effort to get to that point where you can recognize the Dhamma actually working.
Oh, I got tired of dragging bodies through the woods.
Yeah.
That was so funny. That's what I was thinking. I remembered how you had gotten to the point where you could appear to be calm, but you were still bobbing them, bagging them, and dragging them to the woods.
So now you're actually calm.
I don't do that anymore.
Thank
you, Frank. Eric, good to see you.
It's good to be here. It's good to see everyone. Yeah, I think it's very interesting being able to be aware of the present quality of my mind, throughout just day-to-day things. I know before it was something that I never really thought about, and just to be able to think about it and be aware of it is I don't know, it can definitely change and help you out. And something else that I kind of had a question about was, again, meditation, something would pop up that was good, and in my head I just thought, not really analyzing it to the best of my ability, doing something out of goodwill or just your conscience, would that be considered clinging to your conscience, or just it is what it is?
It's kind of impossible for me to answer that. I mean, I can give you an opinion, but it really doesn't matter. Yeah. What's important is the quality of your mind in that moment. And so when that feeling of I'm doing something good, or I have a good thought towards something or someone.
Yeah, I just noticed it, whatever popped up, it was good. And then don't know. Like I just wasn't sure if that was considered like clinging to it or.
Oh, in meditation, the clinging to it would play out as you couldn't get rid of the thought now. And you might become enamored about what a good person I am, or even boy, I'm wonderful for having that thought. No matter what that is, you come back to the sensation of breathing, and that ends the clinging. So the question isn't so much, am I clinging with the thought? It's what do you do after you have that that self-questioning thought about, am I clinging? Because if you follow that, what are you doing? You're clinging. Yeah. And in that way, you're using in a way you're using the Dhamma to further your distraction. But that's included in the concentration practice. Whatever comes up, come back to the sensation of breathing. But what's remarkable, Eric, is you're able to actually see what's occurring in your mind. If I said to you 2 years ago that one of the most important things for you to develop moving forward in your life is to be able to recognize the quality of your mind, you probably wouldn't come back anymore, would you? But now again, I'm not making, but now you see how important that is. That's really the whole enchilada. What's the quality of my mind in this moment? And what have I done to either maintain a common peaceful mind or continue myself towards distraction? You're describing, both you and your dad are describing that beautifully too. We all are. Thank you. Marcin, good to see you. Sorry for that stop and go earlier.
Oh,
but,
no, that's good. Well, you know, I'm not the best talker, listener, you know.
Yeah.
I can only share a little bit. Well, Michael back there saved my Saturday. When we were working out, and he said, you know, to breathe, because I mean, like I told you, I told them, you know, my mind is just constantly thinking 2-3 thoughts at the same time, just like I guess this gentleman. And it wears you out, you know, and he said, like, listen, just do it throughout the day. Just keep coming back to the breathing. And I did. It took me a good 2 hours, but guess what? I was so quiet. Oh my gosh. I was, thank you so much. You know. So again, this is my little experience, and thank you, Michael. Yeah, that's it for me.
That's outstanding. But you have to stop saying you don't speak well, because you speak better than I do, and it's kind of embarrassing. So. I'm going to go to David. David, how are you tonight? I'm glad you're here. Hello, Mary.
Hi, Sam. I'm okay too. Thank you.
Yeah. Liam, how are you? And you don't have to say anything, and you can say anything you want also. So how was your meditation?
Pretty nice. I've never really done one more than 10 minutes.
Wow.
Because at my school, at the beginning of gym class, we have a 10-minute period of meditation.
Really?
It's just a video. And Del Val.
Oh, okay. That kind of makes sense.
I think it's only for seniors. I really don't know, but it's just a 10-minute video, and then there's this woman talking. But it's kind of distracting because there's obviously teenagers everywhere, and they're all like giggling and.
Oh, teenagers.
Well, that part hasn't changed.
But I guess what I kind of learned from this tonight was that I don't know why, but the gossiping thing we were talking about in the beginning kind of like stayed with me a little bit, because like I hear people gossiping about things, and then I try my best not to say anything about other people.
Good for you.
It's really hard to sometimes, because like there's always a fine line between like neutrally talking about someone and maybe saying a little bit more of an opinionated thing, which may be positive or negative. So I kind of thought about that more.
Yeah, I really hope you continue to join us. One of the things you'll learn if you do so is there's an aspect of the eightfold. The Buddha taught an eightfold path, the 8 factors. There's 8 different skills to develop to practice this path. One of them is right speech, and it's usually right speech that people engage with first as their Dhamma practice, because we're talking all the time, whether it's to other people or to ourselves. So it is, our speech is such a fine barometer of the quality of our minds. Just look at what's coming out of our mouths. And so that aspect of gossip is something that just everybody does. And I think even as a younger person, it's even more difficult because that tends to be what you do in a social organization. So you spend more time together talking about so-and-so, and it really doesn't feel good, does it? And so again, it sounds like a almost too pat of an answer, but so don't. But you figure that out on your own. You tend to not involve yourself in those situations. So good for you. The meditation method that we did tonight is different than what you were doing in school.
Kind of. It was still like a guided thing. It was obviously it was guided video with like ambient music in the background.
Okay.
But
yeah.
again, there were a lot of like distractions everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to.
Well, if you're going to continue at home, and I hope you will, if you go to did you go to my website at all, becoming-buddha.com?
Yes.
Okay, so you know how to get there. Have you noticed the guided meditations that are right on the homepage?
I don't think I did.
Okay, if you scroll down, you'll see that. And there's meditations from 5 to 45 minutes. I would suggest that you start with 5-minute meditations. And if you can do that twice a day, around 12 hours apart. And if you come here and be part of our sangha, very quickly you'll be having the same experiences that we talk about. And you'll start developing a much more calm and peaceful mind. And you'll find yourself, and I'm talking about now, I mean, despite my advanced years, I can still remember how I felt when I was around your age. I'm guessing around 20?
About 18.
Wow, okay. Wow, forget about when I was 18. The big thing that I was, and it's my perspective from 64 that I'm able to say this, that I felt like I just didn't fit anywhere, and I was always grasping about where is my place in the world. And I think most young people go through that. It's one of the reasons why Dhamma practice is a little more difficult for younger people than it is for ancients, because you're a part of being 18, 19, 20, and 26 is establishing yourself in the world. So there's almost some inherent eye-making in that, and that's necessary. It's not good or bad. It's just part of growing up. But you have the opportunity now that I didn't have, is to start practicing the Dhamma now, and you got 80 good years of practicing it. So you're fortunate. I hope you continue to join us. You know how to get to the website. You can get my email and ask me any questions. And before you go, I just want to give you something before you go out the door. So hang on, okay? Welcome to our sangha. Hello, Kate.
Hi, John. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Good.
I picked up on the same thing as Julia this week. The mind as a vehicle of perception is sort of what I picked up on the most from the chapter. Perception's like a huge buzzword for me with this practice, because that's what's changed for me. Like the shift in perception, I talked about this before, is the biggest benefit I've taken from doing this. And it's being able to see how you have been perceiving things. I think that is first, and then the realization that you can change how you're perceiving things is like the game changer. And you just see that the same old stories that you tell yourself, they start to sound a little bit different after you do this for a little while.
Yeah.
And, so that's what I was thinking about this week.
Yeah, that's some right thinking. And again, you're describing the Dhamma practice at the point of contact. The mind is the vehicle for perception. And that being so, then the quality of my mind will determine what I'm perceiving, wouldn't it? And if the quality of my mind is still rooted in ignorance of what's actually occurring, what am I going to conclude from my perceptions? Something rooted in ignorance. And it can only create further stress and suffering in my life. But as I develop the Dhamma, like Katie so wonderfully described, I'm able to see it. And as we all do, we're able to see us doing that to ourselves. And understanding that the way I perceive things is rooted in the quality of my mind. Thank you. Ron, good to see you.
Thank you, John. I'm just really enjoying all the input on the sangha. It's just so diverse and still insightful for as short or as long as anybody's been here. It's just wonderful to be around that.
I agree.
And know that more is coming.
Yeah, I agree. I'm so fortunate to be a part of your sangha. I can't tell you. See you, Frank. See you, Eric.
Good night. Thank you.
Good to see you. Hello,
Hey,
Kevin.
John. Yeah, I just wanted to further that and express that gratitude for the sangha. I really can't state that enough. It is really fantastic to just see what's happening. And then on note to the teaching, this Four Foundations of Mindfulness, or even to think about it as we've heard it that way, or maybe to think of the four frames of reference, really precisely describes the practice of restraint. I mean, that's what it is, and it's really how we orient ourselves in the world through this sort of fog of ignorance. We have these four, for that term, sort of fog lights and headlights to orient ourselves through our breath, through our feelings, through our thoughts, through the quality of our mind.
That's beautiful.
And we can do that. That's what we can take in the world with us. And yes, there's dependent origination. Yes, there's anatta, anicca, and dukkha all interplaying. But when we're able to see this encapsulated version of it, you can really see, as the Buddha describes, that nama rupa, it goes no further from that, from a name and form. As soon as there's a thought of me, we've gone too far. So we need to practice restraint, come back to breathing, come back to, maybe at that point we're entering the Four Foundations into a thought already. We've skipped past the feeling. Why do I feel like I'm already thinking? Because it happens in any order. It's a game of 4 cups on the table. They really are. Sometimes you're going to catch yourself in a mind state. Sometimes you're going to catch yourself, whoa, something doesn't feel right here. Whoa. Or sometimes you're going to catch yourself anywhere in between on that line. So it's really great to see it all happening here, and thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that 3-card money game we're playing it on ourselves, though.
Right.
And we don't realize it. Thank you. Hello, Lorna.
Hi, John. Just want to speak about last Saturday. We had a very good class, part 1. Part 2 is equally as good tonight, but also part 1 was followed by Qigong.
Yeah.
And
I heard about that.
I can't tell you
It was in the
how
Star Ledger.
great a class it was. At the end, when I had the Qigong class, went home, and I truly was in a really, really peaceful place. In fact, I was in retreat mode. I was just, that's not an exaggeration. I really felt different. And obviously it was from John's very good class in Qigong. Anyway, I would just like to say, if anybody is even thinking about coming to Qigong, I would ask you to do so and just try it. And if you've been to other Qigong classes, or you've got an idea what Qigong is and it's not for you, you might think it's not for you or something like that, just come and give it a try. And also, Matt says a lot. We do a lot of Qigong, but it says a lot as well. And it's also very difficult to describe health. People describe health often in a negative form, which is when you have ill health. And it's actually difficult to describe health. We kind of know what it is to be healthy, to have a healthy mind, to have a healthy body, but it's actually technically difficult to describe. And Matt gave the best description of health that I've ever heard. What actually is health. And when you can understand what health is, then it's easier to maintain health. It's a building block for you to maintain health. It was just awesome. I really mean that. It was great stuff. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorna. Yeah, so we are very fortunate to have Matt and all the things that he does. He's an outstanding. You might want to go in the other room for a few minutes. He's an outstanding, he really is an outstanding acupuncturist, and his mindful presence is what really sets him apart. And the way that he has integrated the Dhamma into Qigong, and that's how he teaches it, is really remarkable. So again, I would say what Lorna said, if you have a chance, that's not the way to say it. On the third Saturday of every month, Matt has a Qigong class. It is a great enhancement to our Dhamma practice. I encourage you all to come. But if you all come, we're going to need a bigger space for that too. Yeah, right after Saturday's class at 10:30.
That's this Saturday, right?
No, actually, the
third Saturday of the month. So next class will be February 15th.
Wait a minute, you said.
Yeah, last time we did it on the 25th, which was this past Saturday.
It's typically on the third Saturday of every
Yeah.
month, unless something comes up and affects that. But anyway, those of you who are on retreat know it, because Matt leads us in Qigong on retreat, and it's such an important part of our retreats. And now, Matt Brand.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, John. Good to be here with everybody. Good to hear everybody. This has been really great to go through this course again and hear all of the new people and talk about their experience of practicing the Dhamma. And everyone that's been here, as long as a lot of us have been here, I'm sure can all attest to how heartening it is to hear newcomers talk about their experience with Dhamma. Yeah. So thank you, Sangha. Thank you, John. I just wanted to say, I heard it mentioned several times tonight, and John has said this many times when talking about meditation practice and mindfulness practice. The Tibetan word gom for meditation, which is to become familiar with, or to become intimate with, and practicing in this way, practicing the Four Foundations of Mindfulness in this way, is how we become familiar with our mind. And when we practice that way continually with dedication, with right effort, you will have a direct experience of impermanence. And when you have a direct experience of impermanence, you're well on your way to practicing the Dhamma. So this practice of Four Foundations of Mindfulness is absolutely essential to becoming familiar with your mind and to cultivating a direct experience with impermanence and to practicing the Dhamma. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Matt. All right, our homework this week is to read chapter 3 and prepare how you will for your class. I encourage you to write out a couple paragraphs about what you've been learning each week. It just helps integrate the Dhamma. But that's next week. I told you all about the retreat. We're caught up on that. We'll close with the Karniya Metta Sutta, as we always do. So again, take a moment to become mindful of your in-breath and your out-breath. Bring your mind back into your body if it needs it. And these are the Buddha's words on metta, on loving kindness, from the Karniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class tonight. Peace. Thank you, Jane. See you soon.
Thank you, John. Good night.
All right.
Good night.